Don't start already assuming you're able to find and join your first prospect. As soon as your boots hit the ground, you want to start collecting ferns, small trees, and rocks. Don't worry about consumables like food right now. I'll explain more in a second. Just collect a good amount to get started. Don't just mindlessly gather though. Look ahead to sections you're going to and make sure there aren't any wolves or the like that are going to attack you, as you can't defend yourself, and if you die, you'll incur an XP penalty or even lose your stuff. Now that you've got a good handful of each resources, it's time to make some basic tools and get consumables to keep you alive. Press O to open your crafting menu, craft your stone pickaxe and stone axe. Now we need to get our first level to buy some blueprints. Start harvesting small stones or oxide boulders and some trees. Boulders are pretty straightforward, just smash with a pickaxe until they're gone. Same goes for the oxide boulder. For trees, you first have to cut them down. Then cut off a smaller section. Then cut that section into lumber you can pick up. You also need some consumables to stay alive. You've probably already grabbed some berries or other foods while harvesting, and as you can now see, food degrades in this game and pretty fast. Luckily, they only degrade one at a time per stack. So when gathering, don't gather every bit of food you see, because most of it will spoil before you can consume it, and then it's gone. The most common food you're going to find early are berries, pumpkins, corn, watermelon, soybeans, and maybe some carrots. Now these have different buffs they give you, but for now just focus on the hunger and thirst they provide. These are mostly useful for replenishing your hunger, but you have 3 status bars to maintain: hunger, thirst, and oxygen. Open your map and you'll see a pond and a river nearby. This is your best source for maintaining thirst. You can drink directly from it, which risks a chance of dysentery, or you can soak in it for a slower refill.
Here in the Terra Zone, the water's pretty clean. Fish don't seem to mind it.
Lastly, we have oxygen, which is replenished by these oxide rocks you've already picked up. When gathering these consumables, try to avoid these plants: cocoa, tea, wheat, reed flour, wild gorse, yeast, lily, and coffee, as you won't have the blueprints to use them, nor will you be on this prospect long enough to get those blueprints.
Good work, Freshwood. With new skills come new possibilities. What you do with that knowledge, well, that's up to you.
Now after you've gathered enough to get that first level, press P to open the tech tree. You should have 3 points to spend. Your first 2 should go into the wood spear and the stone knife, so that you can defend yourself as well as hunt and skin animals. The third point is up to you. You could go into campfire to allow you to cook the meat from the animals you're hunting, or the rag torch to allow you to see at night, because it gets very dark in this game and there is no brightness setting. Cloth bandage you'll want eventually, but right now it isn't that useful. I would avoid buying the bow as you can't afford to buy the arrows to use it right now. Oxidizer and chests are luxury items at this point more than they are a necessity. Lastly, you can start the investment into shelter if you want. Again, like with the bow, it takes multiple points before you can really start using it. 3 at least to buy the beam, wall, and floor. If you spend this point here now, though, and the next 3 also on shelter, you'll get access to the roof. But the roof isn't necessary to complete the shelter because you can use a floor as a roof to save that point. Now, if you're playing with other people, it's good to branch out here and delegate who's buying what to get wider access to things. At this point, just keep grinding out those next couple of levels till you can get some key blueprints before moving on. This first prospect is really just a tutorial for you to figure the game out. But if you look at the blueprints menu, you can see that some things are level locked at 5 and so on. So I would suggest trying to get at least close to 5 before leaving. Of course, you'll get a little XP boost on the next prospect because you'll have to collect all these resources again to make tools and consumables to stay alive. Let's talk briefly about talents. It's really a your choice thing. Build your character how you want, and again, if you're playing with other people, branch out and have different people spec for different stuff. You only get something like 40 points, so plan ahead. You also get solo points for playing alone that have a more narrow skill tree. Now, as I mentioned earlier, each food has different buffs, and if you've made a campfire, you can see some of those foods can be cooked to change or increase those buffs. In my opinion, the big 2 are cooked meat and cooked fish, which give you an HP increase, and these do stack. However, you can only have 3 going at a time. So make sure if you're going to be fighting wolves, bears, or jaguars early on, you have at least these 2 foods. You can see your statuses, positive and negative, here on the inventory screen. Before I go, here's just a couple more tips to help you along the way that the game doesn't really tell you. Harvest carcasses with an axe after you skin them for some additional bone. This will be more useful as you upgrade to bone spears, knives, and arrows, as those tools require a lot of bone. Along with that, when you do upgrade, destroy your older tools to get your resources back. You can consume entire stacks of consumables rather than eating them one at a time. Make sure to claim your reward after you complete a prospect. If you do not do this, you can still go back and do it through your mail. You can place map markers by double-clicking on the map. Crouching will prevent you from falling off of a ledge that would damage you, much like in Minecraft. Now, if you're like me, the reason you look for a video like this is because you did your first prospect, you loaded your ship up with things you thought you might need on the next prospect, only to get to orbit and find that none of that stuff came with you. Despite being able to seemingly place anything in those slots, the only things able to go back with you are exotics found on the prospect, quest items, or gear you brought down from the workshop. Hopefully this has helped you figure out what you're doing in Icarus. Please leave a like and a comment if you think there's something that I missed. Thanks for watching.